Okay, I want to introduce some language. And language, of course, is ideas. And I want to do this in a way in which we have questions. And the questions I want you to ask yourself, and this is part of your empirical, self-introspective soul observation of your own mind. What is thinking and what is thought? And in relationship to that, what is experience? Now, these are not simple questions, and if you give glib answers, you're not paying attention. You need to pay attention to yourself. There's a mystery there. Experience, thinking, thought. What are those? To your experience and your personal empirical introspective observation of your own mind. Now, I want to introduce three words here because we've just been talking a little bit about them from a certain direction. Now, there's a threefoldness to these words, and I'm going to give you the middle word first, which is rationality. Now, we can go through life and we'll see somebody do something and we'll think, well, that's not rational. Or we might say that person has no common sense. And what do we mean? Well, excuse me. In a lot of cases, what we mean is that according to my experience of what it means to be rational or have common sense, that person isn't behaving that way. We take our own understanding, our own point of view, and we go, okay, there you go, let's see, that's not rational. Now, all I want to point out to is this, let's call it state of mind, or condition of mind, or capacity of mind that we call rationality. Recognizing that we may do something different at that level than somebody else. Okay? Somebody else may do something they think is rational and we think, no, that's not rational, that's irrational. Well, that's the second of the three things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about rationality and irrationality. Now, we can judge another person for having irrationality, but again, I'm just trying to use a word to describe a condition or state of mind. Now, let's think for a moment about our dream life. Now, the dream life defies rationality. It is irrationality in spades. And sometimes when we get angry and try to put our fist through the wall and suffer the consequences of a broken hand, that comes from that emotion which we refuse to be the master of. We can call that a kind of irrationality. Sometimes people do things which are foolish. We may even do things which are foolish. And other people might call that irrational. But then there's this thing, that's this cliche that says, what's foolish in the eyes of men is often wisdom in the eyes of God. And there's a really great book called Meditations on the Tarot. And in the 21st arcanum of that book, the card The Fool is also called Love. And the writer of that book draws a relationship between foolishness and love. And we have that, only fools fall in love, we say. And we do, when we're falling in love, feel kind of giddish, foolish, and we know it as a good thing. And even if it falls apart, and even if there's a bad end to the thing, we don't really want to consider our having let ourselves fall in love to be a bad thing. We watch puppies at play, and we know dogs are creatures of love, intensely loyal, devoted to their masters. When I was growing up, we had a family dog called Duchess. She was a black Cocker Spaniel. She had papers. We bred her, sold the puppies. One day when my younger brother, who was 8 years younger than me, was a toddler, maybe 2, he somehow got out of the fenced backyard. Maybe I left the fence open. I don't know what happened. But he's heading toward the street, which is a very attractive place that has a lot of traffic on it. And Duchess knocked him down and sat on him. Love is foolish. And that kind of action, I don't think, can be encompassed by the word irrational. And so I've added to my 2, irrational and rational, a third word, transrational. And these words, I think, encompass aspects of our human nature. We are, on occasion, irrational. We are, on occasion, rational. We are, on occasion, transrational. And precisely what that means in every given instance, only you can say about yourself. Someone might say to you, "You fool, you idiot, that's irrational." And your own mind, you say, "No, that's not quite right. I wasn't irrational." And I say to you, "Right, you probably weren't. You were transrational. You gave yourself over to an intuitive understanding in the moment of something that could only be expressed in that moment, and was not based on reflection or what we normally consider rational thought. It was based on intuition, which is instantaneous." And the beloved Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa talked about what he called crazy wisdom. And this is one of the things I think he meant by that. He meant transrational, beyond the rational, an insight that one lives into without being concerned about consequences, without having second thoughts, but which is not actually irrational, it's transrational. The world that we see through the news, the world that we see in ourselves, the world that we see in our families is full of the irrational, the rational, and the transrational. And people can make too much of one and not enough of another. People can elevate the rational and say that that's the thing. And you see that sometimes in people who are overly rigid in the way that they think. They want to be not transrational or even irrational, but hyper-rational. Your mind is a very interesting place. It contains all manner of features, all manner of states, all manner of qualities. Your mind is a miracle, and it's yours. And you can be irrational, you can be rational, you can be transrational. There's a reason that in America there arose a movement called transcendentalism. There's a reason there was a counter movement that arose at a certain time in Europe that was called Romanticism. Those were transrational states or conditions of mind pursued by poets and artists and philosophers and thinkers who found natural science hyper-rational, too rational. And what does the transrational mind do? It mixes the irrational and the rational. It joins them together in a kind of dance. When the irrational and the rational dance together, that's when you get the transrational. The irrational becomes non-rational, not out of control irrational, but controlled, non-rational, magical, mysterious. We make a sudden decision. We have an insight, and we know the right thing to do, and we know at the same time that it's not a rational thing that we do. Watch the movies by Clint Eastwood, Million Dollar Baby and Gran Torino, and see the stories of a man who finds that he has to be transrational. He has to go beyond even the seeming rationality of the moral teachings of the Catholic Church in which he was raised. He goes to his priests and he says, "What do I do?" And they have no answers. And that's our biography. That's our biography in this time of social chaos. There are no answers outside us. We have to create them. We have to unite in ourselves, the irrational, the rational, and the transrational, and create whatever the fuck we create. We live in a world of a global mind in which we participate in the next things that happen. What does it mean that something goes viral on the internet? And things that go viral aren't just cute cat pictures. A lot of them are people dancing. To dance, you can't be rational. Love yourself. Dance.